Hi there, I'm Audrey Creighton, and I'm so excited to announce that today I'm conducting the third interview for AudreyCreighton.net's project, The Lives Of. For my third interview, I have chosen an adult in my life who I've grown to admire so much, Megan Smith. She's a mother, a storyteller, a world traveler, a lifelong learner, and a prolific entrepreneur. I can't wait to get started, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for letting me interview you.
Of course.
Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
ready.
So the first question is, could you tell us more about your childhood?
Yeah. So I grew up in little city east of Columbus called Reynoldsburg, and
Hmm.
grew up with a single mom for the first like 10 years of my life. And she was in like mortgage. She had grown up in a children's home, and both my grandparents were deaf. And so she grew up in a children's home and kind of had like a bit of a rough life. But when she had me, she was able to like buy her first house, and but she worked a lot. So a lot of my childhood was spent with my grandma who was deaf, and she lived at the time in Columbus. There's a place called Columbus Colony, and it's a community for deaf and blind people. So it's for like aging deaf and blind people. It's almost like a retirement home specifically for um, deaf and blind. So anyhow, I grew up there, which was interesting for like probably the first until I went to kindergarten. I was there in that community every day. So my childhood was literally just with people speaking sign language to one another. It was obviously very quiet there because nobody was needing to like use their voices. So it was an interesting way. I mean, I didn't know at the time that it was any different than anybody else, but looking back, it was just like a pretty fascinating way to like take in the world as a child. Like even watching, they had like a common area where you could watch TV, and but the TV would never have sound, and they didn't even do closed captioning because the people like my grandma were really good at reading lips, and I was just too shy to go turn up the TV. So like everything was like me trying to read lips. And then if we went to the dining hall to eat, everybody was speaking sign language. So it was like a very interesting sort of start to life. But I find it's worked really well in my favor now in different ways. So that's fun.
Nice. That sounds, yeah, a very interesting way to grow up.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Could you tell us more about your day-to-day life as an influencer, magazine publisher, baker, chef, and mom of three?
Yeah. So I feel like the past, I mean, as like with a lot of people with COVID, with the COVID pandemic happening over the past probably almost 3 years now, a lot of people's lives shifted, and mine definitely was one of those that like took a bit of a turn. Right before COVID happened, my mom actually took her life by suicide. So there was like a weird perfect storm of just like a lot of like change in my life all at once. So when, I think 5 years ago, if you were to ask me that question, I would be answering a lot differently. I was probably like hair on fire all the time, had like 20 projects going. Um, but I think after the passing of my mom combined with COVID, like my life just kind of became a lot slower, that was hard for me actually, because I had gone at like neck breaking speed for like 20 years, and I almost like was thriving. I didn't know how to like not be busy, and I just almost tried to stay really busy, whether it was with the boys or running my businesses, or entertaining at home. It was like almost like I never took a down moment. So I feel like just now I'm like starting to settle into like a new rhythm, and I like it. It's different for sure. But now I still get up every day, and I spend a lot of time writing. I take on projects that I am aligned with values wise, as opposed to just like doing something that looks fun and exciting and fills my calendar. So typically, like in the course of a day, I'll wake up. I'm really into bird watching right now. So I have a bunch of bird houses and bird feeders in my backyard. And I'm like, I even in my bird bath, I realized you can get it's like a bird bath heating pad to put in the water so it doesn't freeze
Mhm.
throughout the winter. So the birds always have water to drink. So anyhow, I've become a bit of like a geek that way. But it's another way to help that just like helps me slow down. I don't think literally before this I had ever paid attention to birds that much. Like I was like,
Mhm.
I don't get what the big deal is. So now it's kind of fun. Um,
Mhm.
so between that and then I do a lot of writing. I'm raising the boys. Kanan has finally left the coop, so but we still spend a lot of time together. And then just recently, as of this year, like 2 weeks ago, I started working on my bachelor's degree. So I
Mhm.
have had a lot of success in life, but I never was able to go to college. So I was like, you know what? That's just been on my bucket list for about 20 years now. So I'm actually trying to do it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I think when I was like a young girl, I always wanted to be an artist. Like people asked me what I wanted to be. I always said I wanted to be a starving artist in New York. Like I don't even know why that was my answer, but it had to be a starving artist. It couldn't be a successful artist. I had to be like, I just had this romanticism about like artists in New York City. So I'm going back to school for like a fine art degree. So I feel like I'm just gonna give my little childhood girl what she wants. So
You've recently finished your entrepreneurial précis.
Mhm.
First, many of our viewers may not know what that is, so if you could maybe explain what that is a little bit. But also, could you tell us about the work that went into that and creating that précis?
Yeah. So it really came about. I was doing a lot of mentorship with small business owners. My journey, like I said, I didn't get to go to college, didn't go to business school. When I started kind of started my entrepreneurship journey, I don't even think I would have known that that's what I was doing at the time. I was literally just trying to put like food on the table for the boys. And I was helping put my husband at the time through college. So we were just like really strapped financially. And I'm like, what can I do to make some money? But those seeds of ideas started to actually like make good money and take off. So I was scrambling to understand profit and loss and taxes and all the craziness that is when you own a business. And then by the time I opened Cake and Whiskey, which became a magazine that was in well, about 33 countries it was printed in. It was like in every Barnes and Noble, and it took off really quickly. And it was the first time I realized I have to have an actual solid business plan. And thankfully, I had some good coaches around me by that point, like people that had walked on the business journey with me. So they were able to help me with that. All that said, really, while the business plan is necessary, especially if you're going to go to a bank and you're going to take out loans, you're going to have investors. What's more important that I've found through my journey is to just know like where you're going and how to get there in a really strategic way. And a lot of times business plans don't address that. That's just more of the numbers, the metrics, the proving your competition and all that. And so I really wanted to create something with the Précis that is a way for people to just like start to dig deep about what is important to them, what they value, do those things align with what they want to do, and in a realistic world, can they really dedicate the time and effort and energy and the like fortitude to go and do what they want to do. Even if it's just a side hustle. I think even with side hustle, you can get really overwhelmed or swamped, or let's say you have like a passion for, I see a lot of people, they have a passion for something that's going to cost them money up front. So they may buy a lot of supplies, they put them in their garage, they get really jazzed about it. They've invested maybe $5,000 of their own money, but they haven't done all the work leading up to that to like execute a plan of action and how to get their products out to the market. So I just saw a lot of people spinning their wheels and things that I had gone through myself or was able to avoid for whatever reasons. And so through the mentorship process that I was doing with small business owners, I was like, I'm just going to put together a manual that anybody could use while trying to kind of like figure out if their next big idea is what they really want to tackle.
Nice. That sounds like a very helpful workbook kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's different than like most things that are available. I think you can get it like a lot of what's in there is probably stuff you could hear on a podcast or you might be able to see in like a worksheet, but to really have it comprehensively, like in, it's like 50 pages. So if you really want to dedicate the time and work through it, by the end of it, you should have a really good scope about your goals and objectives and if it's a viable concept. So yeah.
Nice. So the fourth question, where is your favorite place and why?
Um, okay, I thought about this one. I think my answer as of recently, probably the past couple of years, is Switzerland. I've been a lot of places. I've been afforded the opportunity to go to. I started traveling when I was 15. I went to Papua New Guinea. I've been to Papua New Guinea twice. I've been to Australia. I've been to Africa, Mongolia. I used to say it was Mongolia, um, and I still love Mongolia. But I will say I went to Switzerland a couple years ago, and there was something like I don't know if it was a season of my life where I just loved like there's like a mystical element to these the Alps there and just the I don't know once you get out of Zurich, which I love Zurich, but getting into the kind of the more towns and villages of Switzerland are incredibly peaceful. I was like in shock and awe when I realized that like cowbells are a real thing. And when you're in the mountains in Switzerland, that's all you hear are just the cowbells ringing off the mountaintops. And it's like a real, amazing moment. So anyways, I find a lot I've gone back or I've gone twice now and I think I don't know, it's just like a place of peace for me. I get a lot of creative inspiration there. I would move there in a heartbeat if I could. So if any of your viewers want to send me to Switzerland to live, I will do it. No. Okay. Well, for years I've been into like different kinds of arts and crafts. I didn't grow up in a household. My mom was not like self-proclaimed not creative at all. She was definitely a numbers person. Not that numbers people can't be creative, but she just was not creative. Um, and so I didn't really grow up in an environment of creativity, but I will say that my mom really helped foster that for me because she knew that that was a part of who I was. But it wasn't until I actually met the boy's dad, my former husband. His mom was an artist and had like a home ec background, and they live in Eastern Kentucky, which is very rooted in like arts and crafts. And so when I started dating him and going into kind of like the deeper regions of Appalachia, where basket making and bluegrass music and all these like traditional sorts of things, like when I got there I was like a whole new world opened up to me. So there it probably wasn't until I was about 20 years old I really became invested in learning how to do like almost like bygone era crafts, or artisan sort of things, whether it is basket making or I got recently into intaglio printmaking. I went to a course up in Vermont and learned how to do like a really old time way of printing. I love to sew. So I have like all that kind of in my toolkit when I want something to pull out and do. I don't have a ton of time for it, or maybe I'll make a ton of time for it. I need to be better about that. But that's definitely like a hobby, like a genre of hobbies that really makes me happy. Other than that, oh, I don't know, just staying active. Like I think for me, just being able to like be in nature or even at the gym, like just something that's like getting my body moving. And I feel so much more appreciative as I get older, of like having health and like not taking that for granted. So I just really like, I guess it would be a hobby just to kind of keep myself like not growing old physically.
You're a fantastic baker and chef, but do you have a favorite recipe?
I saw this question. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't think so. Like it's really, I've made so many things over the years. I feel like when the boys were really young and we were really strapped for money, everything was just about, I made everything from scratch. Like every loaf of bread we made, I would make our own cheese. I would make our own bacon. Like everything was just about really like tightening the reins at home. And I think I came up with some fun recipes during that time, but they're not going to be like winning any prizes or anything by any means. But as I've gotten older, I certainly love to cook and bake and I don't know. I will say this is probably terrible, but I don't actually like eating what I cook and bake that much. Like it's so weird. Like I don't know if it's just like you're smelling it all the time. Like when you're around it, like it's like on my clothes, it's in my hair. Like by the time I actually go to eat it, then I'm like, I don't know. So that's always been a problem for me. I'll eat anybody else's food any day of the week, and people, I'm grateful that they love my cooking, but even at the bakery, I like just didn't eat the food. Like I'll test it and make sure it's not going to poison somebody, but like I'm not like eating the food. So I don't know. You maybe that's a good question to ask somebody else about my food. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah. I need to be better about like, I don't know. I mean, Kanan cooks so much now that I really appreciate the things that he makes. He is such a different, he just approaches cooking, even though I taught him everything he knows. No, just, he's like far surpassed me, but his approach is totally different than mine. So it's really interesting to eat his foods because he's less about like the love in food, like putting the love in food. I'm probably more of like a nurturer through my food, and he's definitely more about the science and the exacting nature of it. So it just tastes different. Like it's like delicious, but I would never be able to create what he creates because he's just so exacting and I'm not. I guess my long-term goal will be to finish my degree. I feel like it'll take me 150 years. um, I'm hoping like if I do, I mean, I'm really starting from scratch. So I feel like it's going to have to be a long-term goal to finish the degree. So because I'll be able to go like part-time. So I don't know. I mean, in my most ideal world, I could graduate I was going to say my age. I'll say my age. Like if I could graduate when I was 50, which is like 5.5 years from now, that would be incredible. But I don't know. Short-term goals, I mean, I'm really just focused on like taking on projects that I'm excited and passionate about. And I'm doing a lot of work right now with the Neon, our independent theater. I sit on the board there and um, just trying to help them come up with ways of like engaging the community better, which is a big passion of mine, is to work on projects that like engage the community well. So like short-term goals, I think would just be to help the Neon with that this year. I don't know. I think that's it.
You're an inspiration to me because of your loving, supportingness, and the love for things you do. Do you have anybody
Aw.
who inspires you?
Um, I'm definitely inspired by a lot of people. I think like there's a genre of people that I'm inspired by, and it's definitely people for me that are like I love kind of the human story and like the journey of people. And when I see um either see it could be a celebrity even, it doesn't have to be you know, I don't know. I mean, I think what I'm trying to say is like there's like certain types of people that have overcome a lot and they keep going. And like I'm really inspired by that. So it doesn't have to be like the motivational speaker kind of person that like has the head knowledge. I really love when I read about or I see or I meet somebody that's like clearly overcome. And maybe even like I was thinking about like Martha Stewart. I mean, aside from just loving the home and recipes and all that, the fact that like she literally went to jail for her own doing, and still came out and like kind of didn't miss a beat. While I may not agree with like everything in her life or approaches that she's taken in business or whatever, I can appreciate the fact that like somebody can stumble pretty hard and still like get themselves back up and not just go like off in a corner and never emerge again. So I think there's something to be said like for somebody that can kind of just move through life and take the punches or make the mistakes and still find like some redemption in that. Like I love a good redemption story, whether it's a movie or whatever. So I think for people like, I don't like a Martha Stewart, a Johnny Cash, even somebody like Anderson Cooper, like who has had so much tragedy in his life, the fact that he can just like still continue to like there's so many people that face a lot of tragedy in life and they can't move forward from it. So I just love stories of people just being able to keep taking steps forward.
Thank you so much for letting me
Yeah.
interview you.
I know, this is fun.